Welcome to Echoes of Faith, where stories of hope, resilience, and grace inspire us to find the light in every challenge.
In life, we all face storms, some seen, others felt deep within our hearts. Grace in the Storm is a moving story of faith, resilience, and the unbreakable bond of family. Journey with the Hayes family as they navigate the aftermath of a devastating disaster and discover that God's grace is always present, even in the darkest times. Stay with us for this heartfelt tale from the Echoes of Faith series, a story of hope, love, and unshakable faith. The howling winds came first. What started as a distant rumble soon turned into a deafening roar as the sky darkened and the heavens unleashed their fury. For the Hayes family, the storm was not just a test of survival, but a crucible of faith. Grace Hayes stood by the window of their modest home, her hands trembling as she clutched her Bible. Outside, the once peaceful neighborhood had become a battlefield of wind and rain. Trees bent under the relentless pressure, and debris flew wildly through the air. Her husband David and their teenage children Emma and Jake scrambled to secure the house. "Mom, are we going to be okay?" Emma's voice wavered, her wide eyes betraying her fear. Grace turned away from the window and knelt to her daughter's level, brushing a strand of damp hair from Emma's face. "We'll be okay, sweetie. Remember, God is with us in every storm." But even as she spoke the words, a tremor of doubt flickered in her heart. Over the past year, financial troubles had been mounting. David's construction business was struggling. Medical bills from Jake's surgery had drained their savings, and now this storm threatened to take what little they had left. As the storm unleashed its full force, the Hayes family braced themselves for the long night ahead. When the power went out, the house fell into an eerie silence, save for the wind's relentless assault. The family huddled together in the living room, flashlights casting long shadows on the walls. David's voice broke the silence, offering a lifeline of hope in the darkness. "Let's pray," he said, his hands reaching out to clasp Grace's on one side and Jake's on the other. "We need God's protection right now." As David prayed aloud, Grace felt a small spark of peace begin to warm her heart. The words of Psalm 46 came to mind. "God is our refuge and strength, an ever-present help in trouble." Yet even that peace was tested moments later when the sound of breaking glass startled them all. A tree branch had smashed through the kitchen window, and water began pouring in. Without hesitation, David and Jake sprang into action, grabbing a piece of plywood to block the opening, while Grace and Emma rushed to contain the spreading puddle. It was chaos, and every effort felt like a drop in the ocean. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the storm began to subside. Exhausted, the family sat in a circle on the floor. The house was battered but still standing. Yet the damage was significant. Grace could see the weight of it in David's eyes. How much more could they take? As dawn broke, revealing the devastation left in the storm's wake, the Hayes family emerged from their home to assess the damage. The roof had sustained severe damage, and the yard was strewn with debris. Many of their neighbours' homes were in worse shape, some completely unrecognisable. Despite their exhaustion, the family didn't hesitate to help others. David and Jake joined other men in clearing fallen trees from the roads, while Grace and Emma handed out food and water to neighbours in need. It was in those moments of service that Grace began to notice something remarkable. Amid the destruction, there was a sense of unity and hope. Neighbours who rarely spoke to one another were now working side by side, sharing tools and offering words of encouragement. It reminded her of the early church described in Acts, where believers shared everything. They had to meet each other's needs. Grace felt a flicker of something she hadn't in days: gratitude. But that flicker wavered under the weight of their own troubles. How could they rebuild when they already had so little? That question lingered until later that afternoon when the phone rang. Grace answered to hear the familiar voice of their church pastor, Reverend Miller. "Grace, this storm has shaken all of us," Reverend Miller said gently, How are you holding up over there? We're getting through it, she said, though her voice trembled. But honestly, it feels like we're barely holding on. Reverend Miller's voice was calm and steady, like a lighthouse cutting through the fog. Grace, sometimes it takes a storm to remind us where our foundation truly lies. Let me share a story with you. He spoke of Jesus calming the storm in Mark 4. The disciples, terrified as their boat was tossed by the waves, cried out to Jesus, who was asleep. When he awoke, he rebuked the wind and said, "Peace, be still." The storm ceased, and there was calm. Grace, the pastor continued, it's not the absence of storms that proves our faith, but trusting God to see us through them. You're not alone in this. Lean into him, and the church will be here to help wherever it's needed. As Grace hung up the phone, the pastor's words echoed in her mind. That evening, as the family gathered for dinner, a simple meal of canned soup by flashlight, she shared what Reverend Miller had said. The days that followed were filled with both challenges and blessings. Volunteers from their church arrived with supplies and labour to help repair their roof. Friends and neighbours brought meals and offered childcare. Slowly, life began to take shape again. One evening, as they sat on the newly patched-up porch, Emma pointed to the horizon where the sun was setting, casting a golden glow over the battered neighbourhood. "It's beautiful," she said softly. Grace nodded, her heart full of gratitude. "It is. And you know what? So is God's grace. Even when things look broken, he's working to make them beautiful again." David put his arm around her. "We've lost some things, but we've gained something too. I've never felt closer to God, or to all of you." Months later, the Hayes family reflected on the storm that had once threatened to undo them. They still faced challenges. David's business was rebuilding, and their finances remained tight, but their faith had grown stronger. They had learned to rely not on their own strength, but on God's. Grace shared her testimony during a Sunday service, her voice filled with conviction. "The storm taught me something I'll never forget," she said. "Even when the winds blow and everything feels out of control, God is our anchor. He's the one who holds us steady and gives us the strength to keep going." The congregation listened intently, many wiping away tears. Grace's story wasn't just about surviving a storm, it was about thriving in faith, no matter the circumstances. As the Hayes family returned to their pew, Emma leaned over to her mother and whispered, "You were right, Mom. God really is with us in every storm." Grace squeezed her daughter's hand, a tear slipping down her cheek. "Always, sweetie, always." The Hayes family's journey is a testament to the power of faith and community. They discovered that life's storms, while daunting, can be opportunities to deepen trust in God and strengthen bonds with one another. When the winds rage and the waters rise, remember, the same God who calmed the sea still walks with us today.
Thank you for joining us on this journey. Remember, no matter what fires we face, faith will always carry us through. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. Be sure to leave a comment. Subscribe for more stories that inspire and uplift. This is Echoes of Faith, where every story brings hope. If today's story moved you, be sure to discover more heartfelt journeys in the Echoes of Faith series and uplift your spirit. Don't miss out on the next chapter. There's always more to uncover.